Good morning. I think we're just about ready to get started here, guys. So thank you very much for joining us today. We are starting today with the first in our PastView education series of webinars. So we'll be drawing on both our own experience and the experience working with many of you personally and your organisations to understand how to best organise your digital collections. So this webinar is specifically for PastView users. So as I mentioned, it's the first in our series, so any feedback would be greatly appreciated. I'd like to start with some introductions. So my name is Maestro and I head up the marketing team here at TownsWeb. I'm joined by Casper Smithson. Casper is the business development manager here, and he will be running through some of the core features we have to offer to organise your digital collections. I'm also joined by Jess Coombs. Jess is the content marketing executive here, and Jess will be managing the live chat today for any questions that you may have. Are we having some trouble with the audio? Are we okay there? I'm just seeing some in the live chat. Yeah, can everyone else hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, Marshall.
Brilliant. So let me just move on to some housekeeping notes. So today's webinar will be recorded and we'll be sharing that with anyone who wasn't able to join us today. Cameras on or off, it's entirely up to you. Attendees have been muted by default, so please do use the live chat for any questions that you have as we go through today's webinar. Jess will be doing her best to answer those and pass them to Casper for him to cover as we go. We'll also be doing a short Q&A at the end for any questions that you do have. At this time, we'd really encourage you to turn your mics on and speak to Casper yourself if you've got any questions that you'd like to run through. That's it from me. Casper, over to you to run through the contents of today's webinar.
Super, thanks. And again, thanks for everybody for joining us. This is the first of one of our training sessions that we've put together. We really do hope you find it useful. There's a wide mix of audiences with us today in terms of users and how they're using the system. So I'm going to try to keep it as broad as possible and be able to try to take any questions through the session as well as we go. So if you've got anything, please just raise it in the chat and we can expand a little bit more. We are a bit short on time for a topic that's probably going to be quite large. So anything that we don't cover, we will wrap up, and I'm sure is going to be of value to be able to circulate amongst the group as well. So yeah, thanks again for all joining. So I'm going to jump straight in. The first part is just going to be to run through the content, and then secondly, we're going to get straight into the PastView platform and run through a couple of bits of the training that we want to pick up on today using the PastView platform. So first and foremost, we're looking at attributes, attribute sets, and the search. And as we've mentioned, Q&A at the end and upcoming webinars of what is next. In terms of the attribute, so we want to start by explaining what an attribute is. We've got a mix of different users today. So just to run through in a very short overview of what an attribute is. So it is a piece of metadata that describes either an item or an entity within the system. The attribute is placed into an attribute set, which we'll come on to in a moment. And you can see here on the left-hand side, and as we'll delve into the PastView system as well, what types of attributes PastView has to offer. So you've got the text area, some others. We'll come through those in a moment. An attribute set is a grouping of attributes of the metadata that then relates to the item or the entity. So in terms of this session, we want to try to give some sort of best practice, how to use the attribute sets, how to use the attributes from a management standpoint in terms of your roles, in terms of the PastView system, which in turn is going to give the best possible access for your users using the website, being able to search and getting into that search area as well. So when we talk about an attribute set, we want to be as broad as possible in terms of that categorization of how we are assigning an attribute set to the system. An attribute set could be assigned as a image, it could be assigned as a person, it could be assigned as a newspaper. It's typically speaking a format that is held within your archive and amongst your collections. You're all going to have totally different material types, but at the same time, there's potentially going to be some crossovers from there. So photographs, you potentially might then have an attribute that is photographer, date, type, as you can see listed on the left-hand side here. So the attributes going into the attribute sets. And why is this important is a really interesting question, and why this is so important when it comes to the searching as well. So taking that management side of it, which is building of the attributes, putting them into attribute sets, assigning them to your items and entities. Why is this so important? So this then comes down to the search, and this is why we've bundled these three pieces of features basically into this session. Those two elements, the attributes and the attribute set, power the search. They power the search for your front-end users that are using the site and being able to generate those search results in a way. So the first search term will always be a keyword, something typed into the search box. Let's say, for example, searching Smith within this search box. The second categorization that any user is then going to be able to carry out is the filter between an attribute set. So the ability to be able to drill down on that search in terms of the formats that you, in terms of the management side of things, have set up. So that's why this is important to set those up from the initial phase of using PastView. In this particular case with Hereford, they've gone down the route of using an image attribute set, an ebook, directories. You can see a couple here, but it's going to give that second level of being able to drill down into the search against Smith that then shows all the photographs, or the images in this case, that then return on the results, and we'll go through that as well. Once that attribute set has been set up, you can then see advanced filters, which include those particular attributes as well. So really giving the power to the user on the front end website to then be able to do much more for advanced searches from there. So let's take a look at this in terms of PastView. We're going to focus a lot more on the actual management side of it today in terms of being able to go through the attributes and the attribute set. So we're going to jump out of here and log into the PastView system. I don't know if you're aware, but as a PastView user, you're all able to log into this area called the PastView Playground, which is an area that's set up for users to be able to just trial and experiment with new setups as they work through it. So rather than doing it in their own system, you can have access here. So if anybody doesn't have access already to this, we can provide you access with it, and it gives you a bit of a sort of playground area so that you can trial and use the system whilst you set things up. So under the configuration tab here, you have the attributes and attribute sets. So we're going to look at this in a slightly different way. First of all, looking at the attribute sets, you can see a list of different attribute sets have been populated in this Playground account, and you can see some different types. So we have a journal, a person, an item, a photograph. In terms of adding an attribute set, the ability to do so is here, and you can populate a new attribute set within the system. It's a good thing to think about the attribute sets that you're going to use, those collections of different material types that you have, so newspapers, photographs, journals, and how your audiences are going to be in the end result wanting to search them, how that categorization is going to be searched. If you've got a collection of photographs and you're simply uploading photographs, you're more than likely going to have one attribute set across the whole site, which encompasses all photographs within that particular collection. In terms of collections that have multiple types of material format, that attribute segmentation is key. So where you've got users that are having photograph collections, newspaper collections, journal collections, that's where the attribute sets are key to be able to apply those different elements across the system to be able to then filter as a user between those different attribute sets from there. Once you've built the attribute set, the ability to add the attributes directly into the system, into the attribute set, sorry, is possible. So you can drag and drop any amount of attributes into the attribute set. And if we just take a quick look here in terms of the configuration and attributes, There's a few that have been created here, and most of you potentially have got access to this area, are using this area and working with that. And you can see here that we jump back to this screen in terms of the different types of attributes that PastView has to offer. So we have some typical attributes that you can create within a system. You have a text line, a single text line, a multiple text line. You have lists as well, which are incredibly useful and powerful when it comes to the search side of the user's experience. Let's take, for example, if you had a collection of photographs and you wanted to put those online and you wanted to create an attribute called location, you could then create a list of locations. And what that's going to do is it's going to enable the front-end user to be able to have a selection drop-down list to be able to filter between those different locations, so different suburbs within the area that you're serving up these photographs to. Lists are incredibly powerful, and wherever possible, those types of attributes should be used to enable that additional level of filtration when it comes to the search as well. You also have a number attribute, a yes, no attribute. So typical uses for that in terms of the photograph might be, is the photograph black and white? Yes, no, so that you can offer that sort of additional filtration between searching all black and white photographs to all color photographs. There is a date attribute and also a URL attribute. So data attributes can be formatted in any amount of ways. If we look at this particular attribute here, we can create a creation date. We can make the visibility of this attribute. So as you might be aware, that you can actually show or hide that particular attribute on the main website. And some search functionality as well within here, making it keyword searchable or advanced. In terms of the date, you then have a lot of different options to be able to format this in a particular way, showing years, months, days, even hours, minutes, seconds within there. And you can also show that displayed depending on the type of format within that. So you've got a lot of options when it comes to date attributes. And the URL attribute. So if, for example, we said you had another system that you were using, let's say a cataloging system, and you wanted to link that digital archive, that collection of, let's say, issue number 17 of a newspaper collection to the catalog reference, you can use a URL attribute to be able to link the two systems together from there as well. Attribute types is somewhere that we continually attempt to build on, enhance, being able to put different types of formatted data into PastView. So feedback on additional attributes that you feel might be helpful will be really useful and helpful to our development team, and somewhere that we're continually trying to improve and increase as well. So these are the different types of attributes that are available. You can create these and then assign them into an attribute set. So going back to the newspaper attribute set that we created a moment ago, let's have a look at creating a number attribute to go within this, and it's going to be called issue number. It's going to be visible on the site because we want our users to be able to see it. We're going to make it advanced searchable, and in this particular case, we are not going to make it required, and there will be no default value in there. So we've created that, and you can see here that the issue number is now listed in as a number attribute. And jumping back to the attribute sets, you can then assign the issue number within this attribute set and start building the types of information that relates to the newspaper collection of information. Bear in mind, everything within PastView, collections, items, entities, they all have as default a title and a description. So when it comes to creating attributes, attributes are in addition to those pieces of information. So everything has a title and everything has a description. your attributes then are in addition to those two pieces of information that are already recorded against every collection, every item, every entity within the system from there. So you're looking at things in addition to the title and the description. It's also important to use those titles and descriptions because the search shows the title, the PastView generated title, as the search result form within there as well, but we'll cover that in future sessions from there. So once the assigned attributes are put into the attribute set, in this particular case, the issue number, that can then be assigned to any number of items, any number of entities, and you can then start populating the metadata that links to those particular items or entities from there. If we have a quick look at that in terms of the items here, you can either multiple select and using the drop down manage the attribute set that they link to. So if you want to do that en masse, we can assign all of these to the newspaper attribute set, or you can potentially go into them individually and edit these to assign it to the correct attribute set when you're setting up. In terms of setting up the site, we obviously offer an onboarding process in terms of being able to establish and help you through the attribute sets and the attribute setup. We're also working closely with a number of our users to look back at what's been created, look at how we can improve the search functions and carry out updates to the attributes and attribute sets being used at the time to improve that search. And going forward, we'll also be looking at pieces of training work as well that's going to improve the attributes and the attribute sets on offer. You have full control of the user to be able to create new attributes under the configuration and within the attributes, and also then be able to put those into particular attribute sets and build those over time from there. If we have a quick look at this in action from a website side of things, this type of search is where we're moving the search for PastView. You can see on here that I've carried out a search for a particular image, and within this image you can see that there is a filtration here that allows for the different attribute sets to be displayed that we were looking at earlier. So if I searched across the attribute set Mayfair of the newspapers, you can see it's returning 623 results, normally the OCR text. If we toggle that between the images and carry out a search, you can see it's reducing to 48 results. And in this particular one, you can see that it's brought up the information relating to this particular photograph. So as it was said at the start, the important part here is the keyword search always being the first element of the search. The second part always stemming down to your attribute sets. So it's important whilst you're working through the current collections that you have to continue to improve and add to those attribute sets once they're established. And also when you're setting up your site, it is important to look at those attribute sets in as broad a format as possible. So for the example here, they've gone as broad as an image rather than photographs, glass plate negatives, 35mm slides. They've gone broad to the image level, gone to the newspaper level, because that categorization from an attribute set is the filter next down the list for users to be able to then drill down on that search result from there. So we've gone through a few components of the attributes and placing those into the attribute sets. In terms of just some best practice in terms of working through that, as I mentioned before, everything within PastView collections, items, entities, have a title and description, so there's no need to create those as attributes or attribute sets whilst you build this. It's also important to be broad when it comes to the attribute set. So like that example just there, looking at the likes of an image rather than photographs, 35mm slides in different types, it gives the user the ability then to be able to search all your photographic content, and perhaps then you have an attribute within there that is format or type that then allows the filtration between glass plate negatives, 35mm slides, and so on, so that they've got that ability to search everything to the next level, which is the image, and then to the next level, which is glass plate negatives, and so on from there. And also the possibility to be able to use multiple attributes within a single attribute within multiple attribute sets. So the type example there that I just gave in terms of the different types of information, you can obviously assign that within your photograph your image attribute set. You can assign it into your newspaper attribute set, so that again, if somebody's searching at a top level of the site, they can still be able to go straight in to look at all the 35mm slides or all the loose issues of newspapers rather than the bound issues of newspapers, and so on from there. So a really quick sort of run through on the attributes and the attribute sets. Hope you've really sort of found that useful in terms of setting the site up, or for existing users that are building the sites going forward. The attributes and the attribute set is all around the management side, your elements in terms of being able to build and manage those through the management of the attributes. But the whole benefit of those to your users is it always powers the search and gives that search ability for users to be able to drill down through your collections, whether you've got 5,000 photographs or you've got 500,000 pages of newspapers. The more improvements that you make to those attributes and attribute sets for users to be able to drill down into it, they're going to be able to reach the individual item or the person that they're looking for in the archive each time from there. So I'll open up quickly to Jess just to take on some of the questions. I can see there's quite a few raised in the chat. We'll try to go through a few of those. Obviously, it is quite a short session in terms of just getting some ideas bounced around out there, and we can obviously write up on this to come back to you in response if we don't get an opportunity to answer all the questions. So Jess, are you
okay
there?
That's great, thank you. So there's not a huge amount of questions there, but obviously if people remember that the chat's there, feel free to start adding things in there if something comes to mind now. I was wondering if it's possible for you to jump back somewhere to where you've just been, Casper, because Roger's asking, how do you insert the drop-down menu on the left-hand side of the search box? I thought that might be something that would be easier to show.
Yeah, okay, so it is something that you just need to come to us and have a quick chat about. It's in progress at the moment to be able to roll out across all sites. It's soon being released, so we can pick that up, Roger, with you and the team to be able to implement and set up. So I'll be in touch.
Just have a look through to see if there's any that I've missed. I think we're all good unless anybody is thinking of something. Right, oh, here we go.
Or failing that, just feel free to unmute yourself and just jump in and ask a question. We've got a few.
Absolutely. Patrick, would you like to jump on and ask?
Hi there, cheers, Jess. It's just a quick question. When you mentioned about linking to URLs there, it made me think we're looking to link a lot of the PDFs. One of our big collections would be journals, and the more recent ones, we'd quite like to attach DOIs to individual articles within there. Is that something that's been done before, do you know, or possible?
So the URL would be assigned to an item, so a page.
Just a page, so it couldn't be like
just a page.
Series 6 pages, okay.
But so it would have to be done on an item by item basis. If that's a double page scan or a single page scan, you'll be attributing that URL to the full content of that page's worth. With the likes of the PDFs that you've mentioned there are some other options that you could do in terms of attaching those PDFs. I don't believe any of the users on today is using this function, but there is such a thing called offline copies on all collections. I think some people might be using this, but I'm not entirely sure. An offline copy is basically a zip folder. It's the way that Hereford are using their ebooks and things like that. You can zip a folder and attach it to a collection. So let's say for
Yeah.
newspapers or journal collections, you could directly upload that PDF so that either users can pay for it and download it, or they can freely download that PDF. It could be watermarked, for example, and things like that. But yeah, in terms of the URLs, the attribute is attributed directly to an item, so an article level piece of information would need to be a bit broader than that just for the page. But yes, you could link URLs back to other systems from there.
Cheers.
And John's wanting to know, is it possible to assign not known to non-text attributes?
Not known to non, is that from you, John Rosie? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Not known to non-text attributes. So all attributes have a default value that you can assign into them. I'm assuming, are you thinking of number ones and things like that?
I'm thinking particularly of where we've got a collection where the date of something might be known for the majority, but not for some. So it's to avoid us putting some sort of default date in. Is it possible to put a more accurate not known?
Okay, I believe it is, but actually with the numerical ones, I just have to double check on that actually, because I don't know whether you have to fix a 4-digit number into that numerical value or whether it needs to, you could put a placeholder text. Failing that, if it's not possible with placeholder text, then we could actually do something in terms of coded on the website side of it. So if there's nothing present in that field, we would just put a placeholder to sort of override that and put a not known within there from
fantastic. Thank you.
But yeah, I'll come back to you on that, John.
Okay, great, thank you.
Just one thing, Roger Turner. If you assign a multiple an attribute to a group of items, and you attribute to a bunch of items that already have attributes there, are the existing ones overwritten?
So if you create a new attribute and then you drag that into the new attribute set, then whatever that, if that has placeholder text in it or if it's left blank, that will just sit at the bottom of the list or wherever you put it into the attribute set, and nothing will be overridden in that case.
So if you've got a bunch of items that are already there with attributes and you think, oh, I really need to do something different, I know you can go in each one and add them, but a different attribute set. Does it just for my own, does it override?
I see. It would not overwrite if you put the same attributes back into the new attribute set.
Oh, okay.
So the best way to do this, if you're thinking, right, we want to restructure some of our attributes and so on from there, best thing to do is take your whole list of attributes and put the whole list into your new set of attribute sets, and then create your new attributes as well, and then work through, once you've got all that data in place, to be able to start removing some of the things that you no longer need or require. We can help you through that process as well. So happy to have another chat outside of this. We've been doing quite a bit of work with some of the users on today as well, with updating attribute sets and things like that as well. So yeah, we can.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Brilliant. I'm going to bring it all to a close then. It's been great to see everybody. As we said at the start, these are the first session, so we're going to be running another, which Marshall is going to touch on in a moment. But appreciate all the questions. If you've got anything else, feel free to drop me an email. And if there's anything else that you want to see in terms of these quick sessions, then let me know as well. We'd love to keep working with the user group and share information throughout. So yeah, hope to see you on another one soon. I'm going to pass over to you, Marshall, quickly.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Casper. So as I said, this is the first in our education series for PastView. I hope you found it useful. We will be running the next one in our series, Becoming a Digital Data Matchmaker with PastView, and that is on the 20th of July at 3 p.m, as you can see there. So that is all about creating the connections between your items in your collections and the people within your collections. So we'll be focusing on related entities, related collections, and tagging features within the PastView platform. So we hope you find that useful. We will be reaching out to everyone with a short wrap up of today's webinar, we will also include some links to join the next webinar in the series. Again, hope this is pretty useful. Any feedback that you've got, anything that you'd like us to cover will be greatly appreciated. We really want to provide useful content for you guys. So if there's other features that you'd like us to cover next, then by all means, give those suggestions across us and we will look to get those webinars in later down the line. I think that's it from me, Casper. Thank you very much, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Super, brilliant. Thank you, everybody, and see you soon.
Thank you. Goodbye.